What are you doing? Welcome to Do You Even Binge? Do you even binge, bro?
Do you even binge, bro? What do you binge? How much do you binge?
You know, we got that. We did an old podcast called Enchilada Casserole, and some of you who are tuning into this one might have watched, or actually only listened because we never had video on that old one.
Never had video.
We had 21 episodes, and then we ended it, and it was a cult classic. A lot of people liked it, but we got tired of it. We got busy, and it was also kind of droning on, you know, some of the stories and whatnot. So this is going to be a little more structured than the last one we did. And it's focused on movies and TV because that's what we do all the time. We live in that world, right?
Yes.
Yes.
What world?
The world of TV and movies, but we consume a lot of it. We watch a lot of movies and TV.
I binge when I'm on a plane. Like, there's stuff that I watch only when I'm on a plane, and there's stuff that I watch when I'm in the backyard, but I don't watch it anywhere else.
And then there's stuff we watch together, like we save, like a lot of couples do. We save movies, you know, don't watch that until we're together. We're watching it on date night or whatever. Or TV shows too. Those are harder because there's time between. It took us forever to watch Madmen, I remember. And then we held on to like the last 2 episodes because we didn't want that world to end. You know, we didn't want to say goodbye to the Madmen world. So it took us a while.
Don Draper. Well, he had a fake name anyway, so.
He did. I forget his fake name. But, well, Don Draper is his fake name. His other name is what he dropped. He took Don Draper's identity. Remember?
Yes.
Anyway. But anyway, so that's what this podcast is going to be.
Him and I, we have the same foot doctor.
Ooh, John Hamm.
I saw his feet on when I went to go
The
fix my toes.
podiatrist.
I saw his footprint on the doctor's office, and I said, "Oh, I guess that was he was trying to keep the row, so he squeezed in those tight shoes to stay in the row."
You know what's funny though? The very first episode of Mad Men that we watched.
He's limping.
No, he goes into the office of what's his name? Roger Stone, right? The gray-haired guy. No. They go into the chubby guy's office, the older man, and he makes them take off their shoes because he has like an Asian sort of theme in his office or whatever, you know, and he doesn't want any shoes. So all these executives are wearing socks in the office, and Don Draper, I noticed a little weakness in John Hamm's character because he's like folding his toes under his feet like a kid, you know, like hiding his toes. And I don't think that's part of the character. I think that was him doing that and not paying attention to what his feet were doing while he was in that scene. But it bugged me because that's like when Hank Hill.
See what he's doing right there?
Damn! You're looking at it.
He probably has 2 ingrown toenails right there. So he's trying to squeeze that nail out so it won't pinch so hard after taking that shoe off. Because I saw his footprints over there.
But man, when he was they're sitting on a couch at one point and he's got his foot folded underneath him, and it's like, it just made him look weak to me. Like when Hank Hill shakes George Bush's hand, and it's a weak handshake. Remember that? And he just like his whole faith in the presidency and everything crumbles because he has a weak handshake. That's how I felt about Don Draper's foot from day one. I still love the show though. You think I'm crazy? Anyway, I wanted to ask you start by saying what made you fall in love with TV or movies? What was the first thing you really fell in love with as a kid?
Well, we couldn't go outside and stay out in the dark like everybody else. Now we had to go inside the house when the street lights went on or when the sun went down.
Mm-hmm.
So we would all go home, and my neighbor would be yelling out, "Early birds!"
Early birds.
Early birds, we went in early.
That's like first call or something like that, right?
But we used to watch TV Friday nights at our house, and it was a big TV because I think my mom and dad were doing other stuff. During the week, we couldn't really watch television because they were watching Spanish shows and boring ass shows. And
novellas or just like variety shows and whatnot.
Soccer, man.
Weird game shows with the strange characters.
Soccer.
Yeah, you hated soccer. Now you're all into it right now.
Yeah, but he never invited us to play soccer or took her to no soccer games.
He just watched you and
Yeah,
told you to
so
shut
Friday
up.
nights, man, I like to dance. Friday nights, I guess every kid in my neighborhood was home at 8 o'clock, and we used to watch Wonder Woman at 8, and then Dukes of Hazzard at 9, and then of course Dallas or whatever was on after. But
No,
we didn't
Dallas
watch
was
that.
9. Dallas was 10 o'clock. Yeah,
But we
Dallas was
didn't
10
watch
o'clock.
that. We
Yeah.
just went to sleep.
I watched Dallas. I didn't understand what was going on. I just saw people with a glass of bourbon all the time. And I thought every white person, I was white, but I thought every other white person was rich back then because we were so poor. I was like, I felt like a class thing immediately. Like if you watch Columbo, it's all rich people that he's helping out. Like they're all giant houses and I don't know, evening gowns and jewels and all this stuff. I'm like, who are these people? I don't know any of these people.
That's what you binge, right? Is one more
Yeah.
thing.
So I wanted to ask you. Well, I wanted to ask you first what made you fall in love with TV or movies, or what was the first thing? So Wonder Woman and Dukes of Hazzard, you think was like your first?
Yes, and my family, we used to watch Spanish TV together. We used to watch that long running show in Mexico called Siempre en Domingo with Raúl Velasco, which is the father of Myrna Velasco,
Allegedly.
allegedly, and India Maria, who is on a Wonderful podcast. Myrna.
Right, Myrna.
We used to watch that show, the whole family together.
Is that like Sábado Gigante?
Yes, but on Sunday.
So it's a variety. So
Yeah, variety show.
damn, that's a weekend
We
of
were little
variety.
kids, and we saw Van Halen on that show.
On Siempre en Domingo.
Yeah, Siempre
Oh
en
my
Domingo
God.
with Van Halen.
That's
Channel 34.
Did David Lee Roth speak Spanish on that show?
He
Because
just
he's
performed
fluent.
and roundhouse the two mariachis guys, and but you know, David Lee Roth probably spoke Spanish and learned how to speak Spanish on the plane on the way there.
No man, he like used to volunteer in the rainforest and stuff. Like he used to like help like those villages of little kids and stuff. He would live there like a native. He didn't want to be a tourist.
We used to watch those shows with my mom, so that's when I started loving television. Like I used to watch television all the time.
Yeah, I love TV. I love it more than movies. I love movies, but TV has been my go-to. And my first memories of TV and my love for it were Soap and Mary Hartman. I never understood Mary Hartman because it was such a wild. I didn't get a
You gotta have a
photo
grandma to
of
watch
that one.
those shows.
No, I watched these by myself. Soap was these shows were in reruns when I was watching them. I must have been 7 or 8. It was after my dad left, and then I was always up late at night by myself. My mom went to bed, my brothers went to bed, and I was up till midnight by myself. She didn't care, and I watched Soap at 11 and Mary Hartman at 11:30 on some local channel, like affiliate, and it was my time to like be myself and chill with no loud brothers around and my mother not yelling. So it was like so peaceful for me. But those were my shows, man, back in the day. Mary Hartman was such a weird show. She was like a depressed housewife, and there was no laugh track. And she always talked about the yellow wax buildup on her kitchen floor. Didn't make any sense to me, but I just ate it up. I loved it. But
I don't think that show aired on our television.
I think it did. You just didn't see
I don't even know. I
it.
can't even tell what channel it aired. 13,
It's probably a weird.
9, 5.
I don't know what channel it was, but it was some sort of affiliate of something. Probably ABC affiliate. Anyway, and my dream back then as a kid was to program TV. I wanted to program like the time slots of what shows aired when and what competed against other shows on other networks. I just was really into that. I didn't know it was a job I could have had.
I wanted to program shows that I liked that didn't come on at the same time my mom's favorite Spanish show comes on. Like could Incredible Hulk start at 7 a.m., 7 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. when my mom wants to watch Mama Campanita, which is so popular, very popular.
I know it sucked. I mean, kids today don't understand just having one television in the whole house and fighting over what everybody's going to watch.
Or making your own 20-foot extension cord.
I never had a TV in my room ever, and I still don't. I don't like it in my room. But anyway, so let's talk about what you're currently binging, because we do binge stuff separately that each of us doesn't like. Like, I'm not interested in a lot of things you watch. What are you watching right now that you're binging?
Right now, I'm binging acid and alcohol. No, I'm binging I don't remember. Actually, I haven't been binging anything because I watched a bunch of shows, clips on TikTok that now I don't want to watch the show anymore. Like I watch
You got the gist
I watch
of
all
it?
the clips. I must watch every clip on that show that Rodrigo likes about cowboys and,
Oh
and
my
land
God, no,
and
no.
oil. I don't know, or cow. I don't even know what
Tulsa
show's
King?
about.
Tulsa King? No, Yellowstone?
I guess
Something where he
I
got a
guess
pair
it's
of boots.
Yellowstone,
He got a
ma'am.
pair of boots to
I
be like
guess
that
it's
guy.
Yellowstone. But
I have
I'm
no
watching. I
interest in
watched
those.
every not every clip, but I binge on all the clips, I guess, of that show to know what it's all about. And let me tell you, man, that show is stupid, man. It is so stupid.
Yellowstone?
It's like if it's like a bunch of guys turned off Joe Rogan Experience and went to go watch white people beat up minorities in the forest. It's like,
Is that what it's about?
yeah, like, hey, you want to see tough guy, you hate Sons of Anarchy? Come watch Yosemite. We beat up bikers.
Because it's modern day, right? I always think it's
hate
old.
the Mayans? We beat up Mexicans for land. And it's just...
Because it's set in modern times, right? I always think it's an old show, like about...
I've not watched one episode of that show to tell you right now that this is the most famous line of that show. That's why there's no insurance for cowboys. Because you might get hit by a mule and die.
What?
Yeah. And you know what, man? And like I made a reference to that show on my set, and I got a big laugh because somebody was walking. I said, "Look at this fool coming over here like Rip from Yosemite, like he's gonna knock somebody out." Well, it's real life, bro. Rip is fucking 5'6" in real life.
That's true.
That actor you see on Yosemite, he ain't that tall in real life, man. There's a thing called apple boxes, and he's the only one standing on them.
I know, man. That's what you
That
always...
show is stupid, man. And then I saw clips of a landowner with Billy Bob Thornton. Oh my God, man! This is so stupid that they got cartel members fighting. It's like they got that movie. There Will Be Blood. Mm-hmm. If it was shot in 2025, and they got narcos. And they said, let's have one big orgy for bald-headed guys who like to lift weights and do grapple and MMA.
Is that why they have Stallone in the... Wait, that's the Yellowstone. That's not the Tulsa King one.
Tulsa King is way
I'm
better than all
confused by
those
the
shows,
two.
man. Because he lets you know it's Stallone and you're going to expect crap.
But he's a guy who got into the weed business after coming out of prison. I don't think that's allowed, right?
Tulsa King is about this guy who did 35 years in prison and comes out and doesn't know how to use a cell phone.
That's what it's about.
Like the whole time is him staring at his cell phone trying to make a text to the whole show.
Does he sound like Martin Rizzo?
And then he looks over at somebody and goes, "Hey, so I could order a thing called Uber. Really, you gonna let this clown run your marijuana business?" Well, they're gonna keep. Hey, where's all the files? He's the guy goes, "Let me see your files, sir. They're in a computer. Where's this computer? Where you keep that box with this computer thing in?"
He gets
kicked out of the mob for being too old school and stupid, So he goes to Tulsa where people are more at his level.
I'm sure that's not what it's about.
And then he fights this. He starts arguing with a Irish gangster or KKK guy with an Irish accent in fucking Oklahoma
today.
And then you both cannot understand what they're saying. You need subtitles, because then The one guy's talking like he just came out of the Lucky Charm box. He goes, "You don't understand, man. You come to my town and you start selling stuff and I don't get a cut with my beak." And then Stallone goes, "You got your oligarchy and algorithm all wrong."
Your algorithm.
And I'm laughing, man.
I would love to watch this show.
People are laughing at me like I'm crazy on a plane. I feel like Kramer when he hit that person with that Dre turkey. The people are passing by me laughing. Stallone, man. He's still in the game.
He's still in the game. Don't sleep on Stallone. Oh, that's so funny. I got tears coming out of my eyes.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I've been binging that shit.
So that's what you're
I binged Tulsa King.
You binged Tulsa, but just... Okay. Oh, mine are going to sound really lame next to that one. But, you
This is a show that I watched to fall asleep on a plane.
Okay. That's a ringing endorsement. You know me, I love true crime, so I'm binging. I always binge. Basically, I start binging a new crime show when I'm cleaning. And then if it catches me in stopping like in front of the television to pay attention, then I'm going to watch that whole series. But I've burned through pretty much every true crime series known to man, except Kolchak, which we ran into. We'll talk about that in another episode, but never heard of that before. But
Wait a minute, man.
what?
One more thing, man. If fucking Tulsa King, he showed up with 50 G's to buy a car cash. In 2020, they called the cops. Anyway, yeah.
So anyway, I've been watching the Mean Girl murders. I'm almost done with that. I think I have a couple episodes left. That's basically true crime, docu. What do you call those?
Is it
Docudrama things.
Is a Mean Girls show about these girls that got to get to kill a person?
Usually, yeah. Each show is different, but it's a real crime case, and usually involves a group of girls who turned on a friend of theirs, which is totally real life about that's what it's like to be a girl and have female friends. Is you're always waiting to be stabbed in the back at some point. But these are usually teenagers. A lot of times it's teenagers, and it's like whenever there's more than two, if there's a third or a fourth, they're eventually going to collect and kind of gang up on the one of those people, one of those girls. It just always happens.
So to be a girl, to be a Jedi.
Well, like Elaine says,
there can only be one.
Yeah. Well, there can only be two, but even those two could not speak to each other again after a while. But if there's more than two, they'll gang up on one. And that kind of happened to me. It didn't happen to like that. Nobody ganged up on me, but it happened when my roommate back in the day in college, she became friends with this other girl, and all of a sudden there were three of us hanging around all the time, and then they'd have these little snide like he, like inside jokes and stuff, and they're talking about you, but it's like Elaine says in Seinfeld. She says when the guys were talking about wedgies and atomic wedgies and doing that to each other, and she said that's horrible, and they said, well, what do girls do? Well, we just mess with somebody until they get an eating disorder. And that's true. That's how women are. They will fucking fuck with your mind, and you start to feel insecure and feel like less than yourself. But anyway, so it usually involved killing a girl, killing one of their friends, usually ambushing them. So that's what these Mean Girl murders, but they're all true stories. And of course, you've caught me recently watching Murder, She Wrote, and I feel...
Oh, that show's boring, man. I got more boring when I realized that that's not a British accent she's saying.
No, she was born in England.
Oh,
she has what you call a transatlantic accent, which is...
she's from New England? Or England?
She's from New England.
New England.
Yeah, she lives... It's set in Maine, fake town in Maine, Cabot Cove, which, if you go to the Universal tour, you see that's the same place. They use the same shot of the place where Jaws was in Amity Island.
That's right.
Amity Island and Jaws. It's the same location at Universal Studios. But then there were also some other exterior shots done in like Cape Cod and some other little towns up in New England. But she really was born and raised in England until she was like 12 or 13. I mean, the real Angela Lansbury. So anyway, I watched that with my grandmother, but I'm rewatching it from the first season. I just enjoy it. There's something about it. And it is the whitest show on earth, honestly. There are so many white people in that show.
She investigates rich people too.
Well, they're all rich by my standards as a kid, yeah, but they're upper middle class, I guess. I think everybody in New England was upper middle class. They never showed any poor people there. But except like a ranch hand or somebody like that, you don't ever see their home. But she's got the coolest thing to me about that show was that this woman was 59 when she started that show. And she was like 71 when it ended. And she led this show. She was America's favorite. She was a huge star. She was a huge star. And to have a woman that age holding down a show as the star is very rare.
Also, shout out to the makeup lady to make her look 70 through the whole
She did look
season.
one age.
That makeup lady should have got an Emmy to make her look exactly
did.
70 every year.
Every year. You're right, though. If I watch it, I can only tell by the quality of the film as to how old that episode is. I can't tell by her face.
You want to move miniseries? All you need is good lighting.
But she went from a physical, like manual typewriter to a word processor to a computer. And they had cell phones by the time that show ended. And I think it was 96 or something was the last episode. Crazy. I couldn't believe it went on. I would think 12 seasons. So I've got a lot to watch. But anyway, that's what I'm binging now. But but the one thing that always bothered me.
Show's about
She's
there was a comic and he had a joke about it.
She's a widow.
Murder She Wrote. Of course, she saw the mystery. She wrote it.
No, she's a widow.
That was what the comic said. And I said, when he said that sounds stupid. I'm never gonna watch that show. Murder She Wrote. She wrote it.
She's a retired lady and she's a widow. And it starts after she's lost her husband. It's been 6 months or so after her husband passed away when the show starts. So she has always had a hobby of writing. And her nephew decides to publish her novel or publish some stories of hers as a novel. And it takes off and becomes like the bestseller. And so all of a sudden she's a mystery writer. And she's not, those are the most well-performing crime series are the ones where the detective is not really a detective or a police officer. There's somebody regular. So like even Monk, Monk was I guess disgraced police officer who had a nervous breakdown. So he was like just consulting on the side, and then you had like Psych where those guys were pretending to be psychics. They had nothing to do with the police department.
And then Columbo, who stole somebody's badge and coat and made up a wife.
Well, Columbo is a detective, but you're right. He may have made up his wife to make himself be more like affable and like trustworthy with these people and like more like a regular Joe. But Jessica is a mystery writer. So the problem is
one more thing.
Everywhere she goes, there's murder. Everywhere she goes. So like it was becoming a problem because the town's so small. Yeah. So like the town's so small that there can't possibly be this many murders happening in Cabot Cove. And then, but then it would like, so she would be like, oh, I got to go to New York for a book signing. And then something happens around her at New York. And then, so you think you could make one of those sort of alternate world series where you could make the argument where she's actually a serial killer. And, it would all track. You know what I mean? Like she's the serial killer. So she's able to find all the details about the murder. But what I love about her and what a lot of people loved about her was she's so tenacious. She never gave up. She kept questioning these people, kind of like Columbo. She never stopped, and she was annoying at one point. And then that's how you kind of find your killer, because they start to get annoyed with questioning.
I don't think I ever watched an episode of that.
I love it, but it is boring and old lady-ish. But I like the intricacies of how somebody did something and how somebody figured it out. That turning point is what I love. All right. What are we currently binging together? Everything we're watching is ending right now. Righteous Gemstones. Yeah. We just watched their series finale. They ran for 4 seasons and it's over now. It's over.
It's over.
And what'd you think? We watched the last episode yesterday. What'd you think of the last episode?
It was good. It felt like they didn't want to end it by killing everybody, or like
I wish they had.
Tony Soprano ending.
I wish it had ended the way I thought it was going to end, but because the first 2 seasons I thought were phenomenal. And Eric Roberts was in the second season, by the way, and Eric Andre, second season. The third season, where it started to get cartoonish, and even like Jesse, Danny McBride, his hair and his mutton chops and everything got bigger, and he looked like Conway Twitty.
He looked like Austin. He looked like
Cat in the Hat. You're right.
Mike Myers and Cat in the Hat.
He did look like Cat in the Hat. But yeah. So look, he looks just like Conway Twitty. That giant mutton chops and the big old fluffy hair. But it became cartoonish, and even Kelvin, Adam Devine's character, became too much, right?
Yeah.
It was just too much. But I felt like the last episode, it felt like they're trying to rush and hurry up and close this season.
So we're like, how close could we get our audience?
Yeah, well, that's one. But also, nothing was happening. It seemed all very cheesy and corny the way they were ending it. But then they have that shootout, and it got interesting. But then it ended again, like on this sort of positive, sort of weird, cheesy ending.
It
wasn't a Jody. Yeah, it wasn't a Jody Hill ending though. Like Jody Hill, we'll talk about on a separate episode. But like, he did Observe and Report, which is just a really, really great movie. But it's edgy and shocking in some parts. Fistfoot Way, which you love. And
like 9,000 times.
Well, Eastbound and Down was his as well. And he produced this one too, but it was mostly Danny McBride's vehicle and creation was this Righteous Gemstones. It was good, but I think it was time anyway. We also binged Severance, which just ended as well.
Severance on Apple, directed by Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller, he's done a good job directing. Ben Stiller was one of my favorite creators because, he didn't direct Cable Guy, but he had a lot to do with the flavor of Cable Guy.
If anybody's ever seen that show, you probably have seen that other show, Office Space, where in the beginning of Office Space, him and his estranged toxic girlfriend, they go to this fat dude, and they're he's about to hypnotize them, and then the guy asks him, "Is there any way you could hypnotize me, so when I go to work, I forget about everything else, and I'm at work, but my mind is somewhere else fishing." So
right.
That's what Severance is about.
Yeah, I was wrong. Ben Stiller did direct Cable Guy. Sorry, and it is very Ben Stiller-ish. But but you're right that it's kind of like Spotless Mind, Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they want to wipe out somebody's bad memories. But this just basically helps people focus on work, and you don't focus on anything in your personal life. You don't get a phone call from your sick kid who needs to be picked up from school. You don't worry about your problems with your wife or your husband at home or anything like that. You don't even know about that life that exists outside. So because they do this little sort of chip implant, right, in your brain. And so it's this disconnect, and they call it, the person at work is your innie, and then the person at home is your outie, and the two never mix. But it's really interesting. It's bizarre. It's a little sci-fi-ish. It's got beautiful set design and colors used, and just so clean. And I love the look of it. I love the opening sequence. I think it's great. But I'm getting a little frustrated after the second season because I feel like a little bit like when I was watching Lost. You never watched Lost. But I feel like after the second season of Lost, when I was like, I don't know where they're going, and I don't think the writers know where they're going with this either. And I kind of feel that way about Severance, so I'm not sure. But if they don't get to that goat room and what's happening in that goat room, I'm going to kill somebody. Because it's stupid. It's just stupid now, right?
Yeah.
The goat room? Oh, my God.
Yeah, let's get back to the goat room.
Because I feel like we glossed over that, and it doesn't make any sense. And what that lady was saying, like, do they have udders? Or do they have a belly button? Or whatever she wanted to know, right? Strange.
That the go room must be a bunch of innies living there, huh? That
I
lost their
have
jobs.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, is that other lady gonna come back? What's her name?
Who? Oh, Patricia Arquette?
Yeah.
I have no idea. She's rogue. She's rogue now. And I think, my theory is she's a daughter of that Kier guy.
Yeah.
Just like Helly is. But she like was more of a loser. She didn't have as much promise as the redhead girl. And so
I feel like she's an innie
she
that
got-
that became a that's an outie now.
I don't know, but she knew everything when she was
Yeah.
in her outie life. I don't know. All right, how about a little movie trivia? On this day in TV and movies, Kraft Television Theatre series started in 1947. It ran through 1958 on NBC.
Kraft Television series in 1947.
Yes, it was called Kraft Television Theatre. Kraft Television Theatre.
So the shows will start back then with the advertisers first, like just say of like Saturday Night Live. It will start off with Westinghouse. But then Saturday
No,
Night
it was
Live,
GE.
GE.
GE. General Electric used to own NBC. That's what I was going to get to, because this show is one of those early shows that was just put on purely to advertise a product.
Because I know that Bob Hope's show was called the Texaco Show
Texaco, yeah.
because I did that in another podcast.
Yeah, that other your show of shows with Milton Berle was Texaco as well. But that's what I used to always tell Isaac, which I guess burst his bubble, was no, everything is run by advertising. The whole reason TV exists is
So
to
Kraft-
advertise something. Well, wait, it didn't start with Kraft. It was called Kraft Television Theater, but it was created to promote McLaren's Imperial Cheese, which wasn't advertised anywhere else. And it was produced. The show was produced by an advertising agency. It had James Dean was on some of the. It was like a single episode, kind of like Twilight Zone, where it was they didn't connect the episodes. So James Dean was on some. Leslie Nielsen, William Shatner, George C. Scott, Cloris Leachman, some early directors. Robert Altman, Sidney Lumet, Rod Serling, writer. He was a writer on some of those as well. But after a few years, then Kraft itself, I don't know where they came up with the name Kraft, if they were advertising
wonder-
Imperial cheese.
That's probably when the word show when the show started sucking. That's probably when they thought that Kraft must have made it. So that fucking show is cheesy as fuck.
You might be right. But Kraft then started their own show called Kraft. Hold on, what did I write? Also called Kraft Television Theater in the 50s.
Damn.
That was on ABC, and that was to promote Kraft's new Cheese Whiz product. And then that one, after a few years, died off, and then the OG one remained. But there were two series on two different networks called the Kraft Theater or
Well, the same
Television Theater.
advertiser.
No, different advertisers.
Oh,
One was not Kraft at all. It was very strange.
weird.
I know. But anyway, but yeah, all the TV networks back then used to be owned by huge consumer product companies. Like CBS was Westinghouse, Phillips Westinghouse, and became Siemens Westinghouse. Now they're owned by, who is CBS owned by now?
Coca-Cola.
Oh, I don't remember now. I don't know who owns CBS now, honestly, but I think it's a production company or a film company.
Viacom.
Well, because Disney owns ABC. They didn't used to. And NBC used to be owned by General Electric, but now they're owned by, it's technically Comcast, but then they have all these subdivisions for NBC Universal. And they own Peacock and all that stuff. Disney owns ABC now. ESPN, 20th Century, Hulu, Touchstone Pictures, Buena Vista Pictures. So it's all communications companies now that own them instead of consumer products companies. But it's so strange. Let's do a quick segment in the comments. Let's show that sheen or shine video. Sheen, I guess, is how it's. So watch the video here. There's a bunch of people sleeping on the factory floor, right?
I saw that Eric Andre's birthday party.
That was kind of what we had to do, huh? So anyway, there one of the comments in there. Those people are all sleeping there, I guess, during their shifts.
Oh, so,
And
so
then
it's real, it's not a joke?
Well, it's not a joke, but I think they're trying to make it more like exploitative than it actually is, because then there were a lot of other comments in there. And there's a guy, the second comment that I clipped also is this guy who is Chinese and lived in China, and he said, you have a 2-hour lunch break over there. And so you can go take a nap. Because, in a lot of other countries, they have a long lunch. The people do go home.
Those are bots sleeping to the next conspiracy theory to bust out.
That's funny. And
Those are the bots that were arrested after they went 2 years of saying, lock her up, lock her up.
They're like in a click farm or something. There are those click farms all over. But then the third comment was my favorite, I think. This was the funniest. They need to get up and get my order shipped. I thought that was funny. Anyway, I
guess money does sleep.
Well, since we were talking about people sleeping there, what are people sleeping on? Series or movies, but I picked one. I don't know if people are sleeping on it necessarily, but I noticed it's finally streaming on Hulu, and it's the first movie I ever recommended to you. Do you know what that was?
Grandma's Boy?
Grandma's Boy. You
Yeah,
show the poster?
Movie. It made no money in the movie theaters.
No money. It was a huge box office flop. I saw it in the theater, and it was gone the next week, maybe less than a week after that. But it became a huge cult classic. And, I ran into Nick Swardson when I first moved here, and he was at a bar. He was drunk at the end of the bar. And I went over to him and I said, you know what? Grandma's Boy is like my favorite movie right now. And he said, really? You know how Nick does? Yeah. Really? He couldn't believe it. But I think the cult sort of obsession with it had just started around that time, because people were starting to share it. Nobody was streaming it. Nobody was renting it out. I had the DVD eventually, right? And I think we were sharing it with friends. And I still have it in the office.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I love that scene. But but if you haven't seen it and you like those old raunchy movies, like weed movies, the R-rated comedies, they're dying off. Go watch Grandma's Boy. It's on Hulu now, and it's also for rent on Amazon Prime. It's basically all of Adam Sandler's friends doing a movie without Adam Sandler.
Like my favorite part, he goes, go to your house, I gotta pee. Would you just pee on the back over here? I gotta pee through my ass.
I gotta pee up my ass. That's your favorite part? That is the weakest part of that movie. But what else was I going to... Oh, let me tell you what it's about, the plot. It's Alan Covert. The guy who dropped the food right there. He plays a kind of loser stoner guy who works for a video game testing company. And then he loses his place to live and ends up moving in with his grandmother and her old lady roommates. And so that's the basic plot. And Alan Covert wrote it with Nick Swardson. And that was the scene. And so...
Jonah Hill's there.
Jonah Hill's in it. He was like... He must have been only about 16 or 17 in that movie. I don't know how old he was exactly, but he seemed pretty young.
Yeah, very young.
Anyway, but that's our first show. And then we're going to talk more in the future about...
my other show that I binge.
Specific shows or movies, or we'll talk about a genre of things, or we'll talk about a director. Like, we might have a whole Wes Anderson episode or whatever. So, what do you think?
Yeah.
It sucked? The first episode sucked?
No.
I seem too into it right now. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you later. What are you pointing at?
What is up?